Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Sporting Fan Podcast. Today on the podcast we've got a good mate of mine, former Australian schoolboy player and someone that I went to school with, Nick Koutsoukis. How you doing, mate?
Very well, thanks Steve. Great to have on the show, mate. Can't wait to get involved and run my mouth a little bit and more obviously get you stirred up because I'm here. You've been talking a lot of shit for the last couple of months, so here what, mate? Talk strictly rugby league. Don't worry about that rugby union stuff. I'm all about the rugby league, mate. And my mind is South Sydney Rabbitohs, which I hear you've been running your mouth about. You keep saying you're not being biased, but you've been running your mouth about the South Sydney Rabbitohs. But happy to get into any topic, mate.
Who doesn't run their mouth about South Sydney though? But we'll get into a little bit of South Sydney's season potentially in a little bit. But first thing that I'd like to speak to you about is you were actually up at Magic Round just recent over the weekend. They say it was a success. How did you find it?
Oh, mate, absolutely. I went to the first one back in 2019. And I can tell you now, it's just growing every year from there. Like this past weekend was unbelievable. The amount of fans walking through the gates. I think there was over 140,000 rugby league fans in and around Brisbane. So had a great experience. Went up on Friday night. Spent the whole day on Saturday at the stadium and the rest of the days at Caxton Street. But man, it's absolutely lighting up. The game day experience is fantastic, and more importantly, it's just everyone's in their rugby league jerseys, and you see all kinds of jerseys out there. I even saw, back Super League board jerseys from the NRL, believe it or not. So I was wearing my Heritage jersey, as was my other friends I was with. But overall, it's a great event. I don't know what it was like sitting from home watching it, but what did you feel of the weekend?
I thought it was quite good. I found it. I was amazed how the field held up. I would have thought it would have just chopped it to shreds and people would have been getting hurt. And then, especially with the rain, but it just stayed together. And there was some really good footy, the Penrith and Melbourne game. Penrith was just played off the chain on that.
Yeah, they were dominant. I was there for that game. The field did hold up. The weather was, to be honest with you, it was pretty shitty weather walking around there, but it didn't stop any of the fans, and all the game played was fantastic. I don't know, the South Warriors game was, I was sitting there cruising at half time up by 20 points, and that came down to the last minute, but that was a 32-30 scoreline, so both teams were swinging the ball wide and putting crossfield kicks in, so the field nor the weather didn't hinder any play there. It's very expansive footy. But just talking of Magic Round, the game day experience and how it's set up is honestly second to none. I mean, Caxton Street's pretty much blocked off for the whole of game day, so you got about 20 pubs lined up either side of the street, just raring with NRL fans, and it's probably an experience which NRL lacks in game day experience, and I think most of that is to do with your biggest stadiums, but also just rugby league's great to watch on TV. It always has been, especially now when you've got your super coaches and people, group of mates going to the pub to watch the game, and not a lot of stadiums are built with that kind of pub scene built around stadiums. I know, ANZ doesn't really have that. The Sydney Football Stadium is potentially will get that back, with Paddington and all the pubs along there, but. No, man, it's really awesome weekend, and I advise it to anyone to give it a crack. But yeah, the results pretty much showed. I think another reason to go is, well, you're watching a lot of different teams. Like I watched the Dragons-Titans game, and people would say it's probably a lower quality of football, but mate, anything that goes to extra point and teams running around, that was pure entertainment. Even though those two teams are on the bottom half of the ladder, still. Great footy and it was great entertainment and all around a really good weekend.
I think that's a good thing as well, because a lot of fans don't often go watch a game that their team's not involved with. I remember a few years ago there was UTS, I'm not sure if they still do, but UTS used to have a connection with the West Tigers, and I went to a Tigers Warriors game at Leichhardt, and that was I know that's a small scale, but that's like that was insane as well. I'm just imagine that on a bigger scale up there, like in Brisbane. That would have been sick, like seeing games that you wouldn't usually see.
Yeah.
Can you ever?
Yeah, go on.
Oh, I was gonna say was like, do you ever see it moving from there, Brisbane?
Like the way rugby league's set up there, like it's the heart and soul of rugby league. Even though it's a New South Wales game kind of thing, it's mate, they love it up there. Some courts a great stadium, but it's more or less the way it's set up to have Caxton Street the way it is and how they're all able to block it off. I think I really can't see it moving from some court, nor would I want it to either. To be honest, like I couldn't imagine any other cities hosting it. Like the only one you would think would potentially be like Townsville and their new stadium, but at the same time, is the way it's set up in Brisbane and the way Suncorp has it, they won't give it up, and it's big tourism for the city as well. So I'm happy to stay there.
Because there's talk that it might go to Eden Park in Auckland. But like I know Brisbane's got the contract I think until 2024. I think.
Yeah.
I read. I think.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to stay on the side of keeping it in the heartland of rugby league, or within the fans that love the game the most. To be honest, and to keep that real atmosphere alive. It's fantastic, and even after the game, everyone's going out at Fortitude Valley in their jerseys. Man, it's awesome to see. But then again, it also creates that, I know you would have seen there was a few fights in the stands and stuff like that.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what did you think about that? Because, like, there's obviously going to get people in. Like, the people are not going to go to, like, for example, the Saturday or the Sunday where there's 3 games. And if their team's on last, they might not go to the earlier games. Go there, like, originally go to the pub and get pissed all day, and then go to the game like drunk, rock up, and then because like rugby league, because like that's the only downside of it. Because there's people just get like because rugby league is that tribal kind of thing, and then people get so tribal about it, and they just once they had got full of piss, they just get riled up. Do you reckon and then that's when the fights start. Do you reckon that something do you reckon that could ruin Magic Round in the future years, or they'll just put more security on so that kind of crap doesn't happen again?
Yeah, I mean they'll obviously get more security at these events moving forward from now on. I think they did after that Friday night as well. But look, it's always been the case when you get sporting teams into one venue, let alone 16 different NRL clubs and fan bases. So I even walked through Caxton on Friday night sober, and there was a lot of people on the street. Here's Rabbitohs jersey, and just having a go at the people walking past. But I had a great experience. I was up on the top stands, and all the guys. There was a big group of mates who were Parramatta supporters that were even there a day early, and they're all just cheering through the games, and even just getting people to scull their beers as you see during the cricket and stuff like that. But I think where the violence comes in, it's more or less around if say you're playing in the main event, so you got Penrith in the main event, for instance, and you get there at 3 o'clock to watch the South game, and you got people who are there all day, waiting for their team or drinking, and they're kind of bored during the day, so there's nothing better just to pay out a guy who's cheering for his team. And if his team start losing, that's where I think the chirp comes. Vice versa, if I was there watching South first and I stay for the rest of the day, I'm not really... Yeah, I'm interested in the games, but I don't really have an alliance to anyone, so I'm more or less drinking, and people tend to make comments at other teams that they're losing, and that's how I think violence tends to start. But all in all, it's just out of security, but if that kind of stuff happens, then it could get to an incident like that, but I'm sure we'll all be fine moving forward in the coming years.
Yeah, well, just on that with the coming years, obviously next year there's going to be 17 teams with the Redcliffe Dolphins coming in. Who do you reckon is going to miss out? Because you're going to, like, the NRL's come out, I think, throughout the week saying, it's whoever, whatever the draw chooses out. But, like, if it says, Brisbane's not playing, like, they're not going to have a Brisbane's going to have a bye on Magic Round. Like, they're obviously going to, put the 4 Queensland teams and, the Dolphins, Gold Coast, Broncos, and Cowboys in. So you're going to have those 4 in. And it seems like Brisbane always play Manly on Magic Round. So you're going to assume Manly's going to be there. Like, who do you reckon's going to be the one that's missed out?
One thing to know is the NRL never randomised their scheduling. That's the first point there. Like, I mean, South versus Brisbane, first round this year. The first time ever, and that's solely because it was going to be Rabbitohs versus
Adam Reynolds,
Reynolds redemption game, which obviously didn't happen because of injury, but, the NRL's continuously scheduling their games to better the viewing and the attendership. Look, if you were to say to most people, I'd say you would just have... Obviously, it's not true because the NRL would want them there to build them up, and that would say the Dolphins miss out, but of course that's not happening. I think the easiest option would be the Warriors, to be honest. If you're to look at attendance rates, I'd say the Warriors, only because they're across the Tasmans and stuff like that. So I don't believe it'll be random scheduling by the NRL. I think they will tactically choose a team that's going to miss out. But look, I was trying to gauge at how many supporters were around from each and every club, and to be honest with you, there was an even share across the board. But it's going to be a hard decision for them to make, because they've got to look at, if they get all the Queensland teams there, then obviously they're going to get higher attendance as well, because the Queensland teams are playing and it's in Queensland. And then you also want to get the tourism, and you want to have the bigger clubs and the better clubs playing to increase that attendance rate. So to me, I'd say the Warriors would be my team that would miss out. I don't know who you think should miss out or what it would be, but my prediction would be the Warriors.
Well, I originally was thinking potentially Melbourne, but because there's so many players from Queensland that play for Melbourne, they'll probably play. And see, the thing is, if you put the Warriors out, they're going to complain, saying like, after all the sacrifices that we made, then you kick us, not allow us to play Magic Round. So it is a hard one. It probably will be the Warriors, and like you said, like Queensland, the NRL does everything tactically. You probably will find that the 4 Queensland teams, obviously it's over 3 days, so two of them are going to play on one day, but they're going to have at least one Queensland team play on every day to get the Queensland attendance. So you're going to have probably the Broncos play, because they always seem to play Friday, so you're going to probably have the Brisbane play Friday, then Gold Coast and probably the Dolphins play Saturday, and then the Cowboys play the Sunday. Or maybe switch to, Dolphins with North Queensland, but, whatever. So that'll be quite interesting to see how they go. It probably will be the Warriors, or if not them, it might be Cronulla. Because I don't think Cronulla's got a very big fan base. I think they've got, each year they've got one of the lowest membership rates in the whole NRL. So, it might be Cronulla that misses out. But, who knows? And
that's a good point with Cronulla. In terms of Melbourne, I know they, the main event for Magic Round is obviously the Saturday night game. And, they put the Penrith Storm game there, even though it wasn't that great, just due to Jerome Hughes and Pappenhausen being out injured. I think they'll definitely have their top tier teams there. So whether or not Sharks will fall into that category after what this year provides, because they are much improved, it's up to them. But yeah, Sharks is another good one. I'd say could be potentially missing out.
Do you reckon there's enough talent to? Well, I know they've already made the decision, but Do you reckon that because they're already talking about an 18 team? Do you think there is enough talent to fill a 17 team, let alone an 18 team? Because they're going to go into an 18 team eventually. Do you reckon there's enough talent out there to? Because AFL is growing like mad at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's not a good question. I think, obviously with picking the Dolphins, I think I'm assuming a lot to do that with that foundation and their juniors base, because they are a big club already, and it will produce that young talent coming through to try and fill that talent gap that they've got. But not at the moment, to be honest, at all. I think an 18th team wouldn't have that amount of talent. You probably see, just looking at the NRL and the difference between your top teams and your bottom half, there is a large gap. Some say it's the tactics that teams are using, especially with the 6 again rule and such, but I think there's a lot of players who are starting for several teams that wouldn't even get a sniff in the top 30 of some teams. So I think that's a clear indication of the talent gap that there is to fill 17 to 18 teams. But you can also look, if you look at the players that the Dolphins have signed, they're starting to fill up a roster, but it's nowhere near a top 17 that's going to be very competitive.
Because that's what I was thinking as well. Like, you look at, like, I think they've signed the Bromwich brothers. They've also signed Koutsoukis. There's, I think they signed Mark Nichols as well from South. Like, if you just look at a lot of their players are either rookies that haven't played any NRL, or like the Bromwich brothers, they're at the end of their career. So, they're all like either dad, they're what they call as dad's army, old guys, or they're all nobodies. So that'll be quite interesting to see how the Dolphins go with the 17th team. Where do you reckon they'll put the 18th team in? When they eventually do it.
Yeah, I think every expansion always comes with the North Sydney Bears trying to go to some sort of location. I know in recent years you saw the Perth government trying to team up with North Sydney Bears and where that sits. I think Perth is probably a market that the NRL has been pushing for the last, 6, 7, 8 years. I know South were playing games there every year over like a 6-year period. I know Origin's gone down there twice now, I believe. So they're definitely trying to move into that space. I know, obviously, Perth is a massive AFL town, and it would be hard to set it up there, only because there's not a lot of junior competitions there, which means you essentially kind of got to get the marketing going and getting marquee players there, but getting marquee players to Perth might be a bit difficult. But I think it'll be good for the game to go to Perth, especially if you team up with North Sydney, so you still have a presence in Sydney, and you play a few games at North Sydney Oval. The other things that have been tossed around would be a second New Zealand team, but you can't go to New South Wales, another Sydney or New South Wales team, just because there's too many already. I think those are the only two options, to be honest. And in terms of New Zealand, I just don't think. You can see how the Warriors have been going. I think you're better off trying to go to Perth and trying to expand into, a different territory of Australia. But you've also noticed that they tried to do that in the Super League and it didn't work out. So,
but I think the problem that they had with what do they call them back in the Super League, Western Reds or whatever
Western
they called
Reds.
them. Yeah, I think that was a bit of a thrown together team. I don't think that was like a lot of those Super League teams. They you look at like the Adelaide Rams. Yeah, they had the South Queensland Crushers. They had they had a second Hunter team. What are they called? The Hunter Mariners or whatever they're called. A lot of those teams are just throwing together teams that that were kind of. For example, the Hunter Mariners were only put in, or whatever the hell they were called, were only thrown because they wanted the Super League wanted to get Newcastle, but I remember Matty Johns explained it one time. There was like something happened with one of the other clubs, which long story. But then they couldn't get Newcastle, so they put another Hunter team in, and no one supported them. But I think that was a lot like this again with the Western Reds and Adelaide Rams, where they were just thrown together at the last minute, and because there was like 22 between the what was then known as the ARL and the Super League. I think there was like 22 teams or something. Because, like, you know, Illawarra and St George was still separate then. Balmain and West were still separated. The North Sydney Bears were still in the competition. That was before the Northern Eagles when they merged with Manly. So it was just like, you know... I reckon the only problem that they have with the Western Reds is, you know, anyone that plays rugby over there is more a rugby union person rather than a rugby league person. Like, because there is there is a, you know, percentage of the population that lives over there that are, you know, South African and English. But when I was speaking to Scott Farver he said, like, you know, the rugby union, well, I think this is rugby union, like the story of rugby union for the last bloody 20 years, to be honest. But you know, the local comp's not that good. Like, well, it wasn't when they set up the Western Force in the rugby union. So I think they would be better off trying to set up a solid junior base there before, like, have that going for at least 5 years, and then try to bring in a Western WA team. Because there's no point bringing, like, see, Redcliffe, you know, is going to succeed, like, financially, because they've got, like, you know, $100 million in assets or something ridiculous like that. But, you know, the Western Reds won't or whatever, you know, whether they merge with the Bears or whoever, they need, like, you need a backing like that where, you know, whether Twiggy Forrest comes into it, you know, or whoever, you never know. They just need to do their research.
Yeah, but I think the worrying sign would be Perth is, like, I mean, they've got North Sydney Bears backing, plus you've got the Perth government getting involved, so I think funding it's not going to be an issue, but it's just being able to attract players. Like, you can see Redcliffe, you would think Wayne Bennett's your coach, you're in Redcliffe, Brisbane, you already got a supporter base, you've got a big leagues club, and you know, and they still can't get that big name. So is Perth going to be able to attract a big name? Probably not. And yeah. I think there's only one player that I've known that was from Perth, which was, I think, Curtis Rona, believe it or not, was originally from Perth. He's now over in Rugby Union. But so I think there's going to be a bit of a struggle in terms of filling a roster that's, because you're almost going with no juniors. So look, that's something the NRL's got to investigate, work it out, but I'm sure it all comes down to the dollars at the end of the day. So my backing would be to go to Perth. But you also got to take into account, like, then you got a team travelling, like there's a 2-hour time difference between.
And it's also a 4-hour flight.
Plus the travel, the 5 to 4 hour flight as well. Then they're probably going to schedule games. I don't know how they will in terms of the time delay. But it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. Just talking about the dollars and juniors and that. What do you think about the business going strictly like the teams going mainly business rather than like a lot of other things? More. What's the right word? Like loyalty kind of thing. What do you think about that? Because, like, obviously, you know, your boys, South, you know, local junior, your boy, Adam Reynolds, Adam Reynolds, you know, was one of South's best players, you know, for the last 10 years since he came into first grade in 2012, I think it was.
12.
Yeah. Yeah, when he took over Chrissy Sandow as halfback when Sandow left. And then, And then they said, "Oh, you're 30." South has this weird policy where they have the 1 year once you get to 1 year deal when you go to 30, and then they didn't offer him, and then Brisbane offered him 3. Goes to Brisbane. South have been very hit and miss this year as a result, and Brisbane have been this from comparison to what they've been the last really 2 years. They've really turned around.
Yeah, no, true. They weren't hit and miss in round 3 when they kicked the Roosters' ass, though, were they?
Well,
look. Yeah, we'll touch on that a little bit later. I'll get you wrong. Look, with obviously being a huge South fan and watching South through the years from since I was born in '95 to now, there was no one bigger than Adam Reynolds in terms of just heart and soul of the club. And any player that's ever played for South, like he represented the fans because he pretty much grew up being one, and growing up in Redfern, and obviously marched with his dad to get South back in the comp, and that's probably the hardest thing with the decision that they made at the time of pretty much letting him go. Like they offered him a 1 year deal, but it was more or less, look, we're going to have to move on and make that business decision, whether it was to have the money to sign the likes of Latrell to Cam Murray and Campbell Graham to upgraded contracts and Cody Walker, or it was more of a decision because they think Adam Reynolds is not going to be able to play in two years' time. I don't know the exact, but that's what I believe it is. And look, they had to make a business decision. It's upsetting, but that's the decision they had to make. And I mean, the Roosters are notorious for making business decisions. I mean, and that's pretty much it's just how they have to run that club, just because they don't really have a juniors base, and you can probably
Why is that? Why is that, Nick?
Well, because they're not allowed in the South Comp, which makes perfect sense.
No, it's because you guys bloody took all our freaking junior clubs back in the bloody 50s. The border was Anzac Parade. The border was Anzac Parade all the way out to Lapa. Then you guys bloody gradually took all our freaking juniors.
All right. Calm down.
I had to get that one in. We'll
keep the decimals low for now. But I think at the moment people would on the outside say it's heavily backfired because Adam Reynolds is playing really good footy, and if he was in our team now, we'll be going a lot better. But I think moving forward, they had to get a young guy in, and if Lachlan Ilias was willing to walk away to play first grade, then they had to, I think they probably made the right decision in doing that and giving him time to play first grade at a younger age and develop. And I think, I'll be honest, Lachlan Ilias has been great. His stats don't really show, but he's just been very consistent for the team, and I think he'll be a great player for the future. But in saying that, look, the Roosters have been solely a business team, and it's obviously worked for them. I mean, there was no bigger disloyal move than I've seen in just telling Mitchell Pearce, sorry mate, we got Cooper Cronk now. But there would have been fans who wouldn't have liked the decision from the Roosters, but when you won 2 premierships in a row, I don't think anyone was complaining at that time. And you look at the Melbourne Storm as well, they're pretty much business as well, but they kind of do it in a different way. The Roosters are able to attract big names, where the Melbourne Storm kind of sign younger players from different clubs, or they have their juniors come from feeder clubs in Queensland. They're able to pretty much poach players at a young age and develop them, like your Cam Musters, your Greg Inglis's, and stuff like that. And then you get the cheap buys that they turn into representative players like your Dale Finucas. So that's another team that's pretty much business in a different way, but it proves success. But on the other coin of that, you could even say the Penrith Panthers, and what you've seen over the last 3 years, have dominated the league, and they're solely just juniors. I mean, they do buy, your odd players like your Kurt Cabwell came from the Sharks, but that was more or less the cheap buy as well that they developed. But their juniors base has proven absolutely amazing, and that's their formula, is to bring up their juniors. And you can see now, like, if they lose players, they bring in people like Taylor May and Isaac Tago, who are just absolutely unbelievable. And then you got Jerome Lua, who filled in for James Maloney, and he's gone from you lost a premiership and a New South Wales representative, and you've just developed one straight after him. So, and that's purely through their juniors. So you can say, it works both ways. I think South has always been kind of on the fence. Even in their early days, they had to try and attract players because their juniors just weren't good enough, and they did that. And now they're just a bit of both.
Do you reckon, because, there's been criticism of, these teams where, for a long time they've been dominant for, it's pretty hard if you're down near the bottom, someone like the Tigers. The Tigers have been trash for 10 years. Bulldogs have been pretty ordinary basically since you boys beat them in 14. They had a good year or two after that, but then they were, since about 16 they've been pretty woeful. You see a lot of the teams that have been down the bottom, the Parramatta really were not until about 2017, 18. From that, when they lost to Melbourne in 09, they took about 7 years to get out of it. They to really get back to where they are now. It was 17, 18, I think, when Brad Arthur took over. Do you reckon something like a draft would work?
Well, it's an interesting topic in how to spread it, because you look at the bottom half teams and why they can't sign the players, or they have to spend the big money. Like a team like the Tigers, who were stuck trying to pay off your Josh Reynolds, your Ben Manolino, and your Russell Packer, who were mostly paying reserve grade, earning $800,000. That was just they had to spend that much to attract players in. What would a draft do? I think they're talking to spread around the juniors' talent. I think, again, that falls on the topic of rugby league's always been about developing your juniors and the grassroots, and you see every story in rugby league, like Roosters make the grand final, they're talking about Victor Raleigh, how he's from Bronny, and that's the headline paper pre come the grand final, is the hometown hero kind of thing. And it was the same last year with Cam Murray and Adam Reynolds for South. That's obviously going to take away a bit of that. I think it'll be something similar to the AFL, where you can probably you could secure a few of your talent from your juniors, and then you can say, these ones are up for the draft. I think, is it going to fix? Are those juniors going to come in straight away and fix teams? No. I think it's all about how you manage your salary cap, how you get players to your team. And obviously the Titans, especially the Tigers and the Bulldogs were struggling. The Bulldogs have signed some guys in Kickow and Reid Marnie. How much they costed them, or how much they go against the cap, I'm not sure. But, you see it in the NFL as well. Players just want to win now, Steve.
Yeah.
It's all about going to a team that's going to have success, and any team that has success also bolsters you. I think Connor Watson is probably a good example. He goes to the Roosters on less money, but he's going to be in a winning team. He's going to be playing his better footy. So then he gets that next contract. It's going to probably be worth more for him in the long run. But do you even look at a guy like Ryan Madison? He was in the Tiger system for a year, didn't like it. I don't know if it was because he wanted more money, or he just knew he was in a situation where he couldn't win, so he jumped to the Parramatta. I don't know how you feel about players and their contracts and jumping ship and stuff like that.
Well, I think you're right in that. I think Ryan Madison's situation was that he just had got. I think he actually said to them that the West Tigers have got a lot of problems behind the scenes. I think there's a lot of politics with the West and with the merger, with the West and Balmain merger. Both sides, and then really they've only had 3 good years since they've come in 20. They've merged in 99, and I think they've only made the final something like 3 or 4 times. Admittedly they won a grand final on that, but in 05, but they've made the finals in 10 years. 11 years now. 2011 was the last time, and he actually said to them, "Oh, you're never going to win a premiership." So that goes back to your point. How a lot of these teams had to play overs to sign a top talent, and then that messes with your salary cap. Which I think potentially a draft could potentially solve some of those problems, but again, that comes back to will the NRL take over juniors? Or like you said, are they going to say certain amount of players from our junior development is exempt from this draft or whatever, but how many can you exempt? Like, is it 2 or 3 players a year? What is it like? So
yeah, I think that's the best way going forward. But speaking, look, I don't know what you saw with I think there was something went around with the Tigers. I had like a team list of players they've lost to other clubs that were top tier talent, like your Pappenhausen, your Tedesco. So they've probably dug themselves in a bit of a hole as well, because they did have a good junior space and they had plenty of good players coming through. They just didn't identify the talent at the time and lost it. So that pretty much comes around to the head office being poor as well. But look, I think there is an issue with clubs struggling to attract big names, and clubs just have to adapt. You saw, what is it? The Canberra Raiders couldn't. I mean, they sign Tedesco to for 3 days, and he kind of backdoored it.
Oh yeah, back. When was that? About 2015 or something, wasn't it? Something like that.
Around there, and re-signed with the Tigers. And Ricky pretty much came there, and they decided they couldn't do it over here, so they went to England, bought a whole heap of players like your John Batemans, your Elliot Whiteheads,
George Williams.
Were able to make it. Yeah, George Williams. That lasted a year and a half?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that.
But they still built up a premiership roster and were able to make it all the way in 2019, and unfortunately fell short. But look, I think it's an ongoing issue, because at the end of the day, every team has the same salary cap, but not every team can attract the top tier talent, and I don't think that's going to change, to be honest. I think players are happy to stay loyal and take unders, like Alex Johnston take unders to stay at South. I'm sure Daniel Tupou takes unders to stay at the Roosters. And that's always going to be the case, because they're in a winning environment and a winning culture.
Well, the other thing with that is, like, the advantage of teams like the Roosters and Rabbitohs, a lot of these big clubs, like the Roosters and Rabbitohs, obviously you have Brisbane, who's a one-team town, is that, for starters, they can get a lot of third-party agreements. So, if you're at the Roosters, you might... Yeah. You might be
players, new cars and stuff like that. Is it still?
Yeah. Well, along with that, but if you can get some look at the Roosters board. They got Nick Politis. He's worth $2 billion or whatever he is. They got Mark Boris. He's worth hundreds of millions. And they got David Gingell and all that. He's CEO of Nine, or was the CEO of Nine. They can get people on the board, they can get deals with players. So, even if, someone like you're an Australian schoolboy, if you went on to play professionally, if, say, South didn't want you, and then you had the Roosters come along, you probably wouldn't want to play for the Roosters, being a South boy, but, if the Roosters came along and said, we're going to offer you $200,000, but then we can give you all these perks that, add up for another $150,000, whereas, you might have the Tigers come along and say, we'll offer you $275,000, but only can give you an extra $20,000. You might be only getting $200,000 from the Roosters, but you're getting, $350,000 in total, whereas someone at the Tigers, you might be only getting $300,000. So, that's the advantage that these big clubs have got, where they can, sign players for unders. And the other thing is, if you're in a winning team, and even if you're getting less, the chances are you're going to make that up if you're going to start playing Origin. Do you regularly think if, Angus Crichton went to the Tigers, he'd be playing Origin? If he's getting, $700,000 at the Roosters, if he got 750 at the Tigers, he's gonna end up costing him money because he's not gonna be playing Origin, which gets him 40 grand a game or something, and he wouldn't be getting picked for Australia either.
Well, there is talk that the Tigers are chasing him, but you probably look at guys like who the Tigers have chased. I think Brandon Smith would have been heavily chased by a lot of clubs, but then went to the Roosters. I don't think the Roosters could have offered him as much money as the Tigers did. But I think it's an indication of, what deals are being made. And, look, it'll be interesting to see what Kane Munster does, to be honest. Because I'm sure you got teams who are at the bottom of the ladder that could offer him, the biggest contract in rugby league, yet he would still probably sign unders for your Storm or somehow work his way to a Roosters team, which I don't think is out of the cards by any means, knowing what... you guys can do.
I can't see him going to the Roosters, to be honest. With Luke Keary's a 3-time premiership winner, and Sam Walker is a future rep. I can't see him going to the Roosters. I know there's a lot of talk that he is. I can't unless there's talk that Keary's really pissed off at the moment. The only way that he will go to the Roosters is if Luke Keary leaves, and it'll be it won't be.
Well, I think isn't Luke Keary due $1.3 million next year of some sort?
Yeah, I read that. I can't.
Is Luke Keary playing like he's worth $1.3 million? And look, the Roosters are pretty cutthroat. I know he's won, those 2 premierships with the Roosters and was the heart and soul during that time, especially in that
18 grand final,
2018 grand final against the Storm.
Yeah,
but I mean, I'd say Cam Munster makes any team better. So,
but the problem
would be the Roosters.
But the problem with that is if they cut, for starters, Munster's still under contract at Melbourne next year, and the other thing is, could you see the Roosters cutting Luke Keary and then paying part? Because I'm not sure if this is still the NRL rule, but I'm pretty sure there's a rule with the NRL saying if you cut a player and they end up signing a contract, when they're still under contract, and they end up going somewhere else, they can't earn less than what they are at the current club, and their previous club has to pay the difference. If he goes to, I don't know, if he ends up going to, I think he is a Queensland boy, if he ends up going to, Redcliffe on the Dolphins, and then he signs for, 800 grand, could you see the Roosters, having 500,000 of their salary cap going to a player that's not even playing for them? I can't.
Does it account to your salary cap, that difference you have to pay, or?
I think it I'm pretty sure it does. I'm pretty sure it does until the contract runs out, which is, I believe is next year. I'm pretty sure that.
If you work out, all right, so you're paying the difference $500K, but then you can sign, someone on the top tier money. Then yeah, but we all know contracts don't really mean anything in the NRL anymore.
Exactly, that's exactly.
To be fair, it goes both ways, because people always say it's, player managers or player agents that are, just trying to get their players bigger money. But, if the Roosters want to get Cam Munster, or how they got Mitchell Pearce, they had to get rid of their contract. So, the clubs just do it just as much as the players do. Yeah. So, I know the type. Yeah, I'm not really sure in terms of if it does account to the salary cap, but wait to see. But I'm sure. Look, but I'm not. I know Cam Munster's contracted for 2023, but that doesn't really mean anything. Cooper Cronk was contracted with the Storm in 2018 and got out of that to go to the Roosters. And people might say, he wasn't.
Was he though? I thought he was. His contract was done in 2017. Anyway.
No, he cut it short. And Melbourne said, yeah, you can leave early. And the Roosters signed him. Mind you, I reckon he was already signed to the Roosters before he even decided to announce in his press conference that he was leaving the Melbourne Storm. But that's another argument, Steve. I'm not going to have you heavy breathing away to make you again, because I'm in the mood for that.
There would probably be something. There would be something along those lines. He knows. He knows. There's always something along those lines, right? You know that you know rip me about the Roosters this year about like when you guys whacked us or.
Oh man, look, it's basically spoke for itself. I was at a function with a bunch of probably 20 Roosters supporters at the time, mate. But I mean, it's interesting. Was that 4 in a row for South? Was it 4 or 5?
Oh, don't know. We haven't. I don't think we've been here since about 19 or something.
Yeah, I think it's sitting on 4 at the moment. But
I think there was a 2019 prelim.
It's a rivalry. Hey, look, I lived through. I think my first game was South was against the Roosters, and we lost like 64-4 of some sort. Brad Fittler scored about 4 tries, but look, I think we're just getting the rivalry right at the moment. We're just playing, more footy. I think you guys are probably playing a bit distracted. Last time you guys have versed us, I know around the first game we had last year was you guys were purely trying to get at Jai Arrow, who obviously got the better of, was it Daniel Saluka?
Yeah.
Fafita? That his name?
Yeah. Yes.
I think
Punch him in the head.
You haven't got the balance of emotion and hype and stuff like that. Obviously, this year was a big one with the Joey Marnie versus Latrell, and a lot of that's just the media hyping it up. But I think South just know how to shut out the noise and just, I'm sure Russell Crowe does a big pep talk for the games and gets his celebrity mates out to the game, so we probably got more to play for. But I know you would have been there salivating disappointment after that game, Steve.
I was not happy. It looked good for a little bit, and I was like, we've got a chance. And then, jeez, it just bloody nosedived pretty. The game was close for a lot of it, and then it was bloody. You blokes just ran away with it. I was just like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, that's true. But you guys, I mean, you can see the way you guys over the years, you're probably a slower starters in the competition. Everyone knows you're heavyweight, but you can see now you're somehow in the top 4, which I think 2 weeks ago you're losing to the Dogs. You're probably like, and you lost to the Dragons the week before, and a lot of your fans.
And we lost to Newcastle round 1.
Yeah, exactly. So no one's writing you off, but you're thinking like, we're not up there yet, but now it's, round 11 and you're in the top 4. So, and then above you is the Cowboys, who I think you're better than anyway. So you're still in the top 3 team. But more importantly, I think the last round of the year, round 25, it's at the new stadium, which is going to be a bit of a bargaining tool to see which club is. I know you guys got the last win at that stadium, which is probably the last time you beat us, which was 2018 prelim final.
I was at that game. We beat you the following year in the the 2019 quarterfinal when it was like 2v3 or something, or 1 versus.
So that's when we had players out because Sam Burgess got suspended for pulling Billy Smith's hair, which I think is absolutely fucking ridiculous. But that's another. It's a conversation we'll have another time. But look, that's obviously going to be a cracker of a match. I know South are trying to. Potentially move back to SFS, which I wish they do because I live fucking around the corner, and plus it's, now becoming, it's close to where South's fan base is, to be honest. I know.
Yeah, that's why I never understood why they moved out to Homebush to begin with, because all their fans are basically like south and east of the city.
Yeah, South's all over the world. South fans are all over the place, to be honest with you. Look, I think when they originally moved in 2005, it was purely money. I think Telstra Australia at the time were willing to pay South a better figure, and obviously the club was struggling with funds in those days, so anything that was more money was going to be attractive to the club. You'd be surprised in where South's fan base is. I know they're homegrown. Their home is in the southeast. Your Coogee Maroubra, La Perouse, and they're now building their new headquarters in Heffron. But I think they do have a big fan base out west. I think bringing it to the new stadium will boost their membership sales, just because it's in a new stadium. People will be more interested to go to the games. So I really do hope so. I understand why they did it and went to ANZ in the first place, but hopefully they come back. But whether or not they're just saying they're going to come back just to try and get more money out I think Accor Stadium now will be interesting. But I know as a South member, I did online votes and petitions that the club sent round to vote what stadium you want the club to be at. They did one when we were, I think ANZ was supposed to be obviously refurbished, and there was going to be a period where we'll play at Parramatta Stadium, but due to that being scrapped, they had a survey go out in 2020 to whether you wanted to either stay at Parramatta, because that's what they agreed to do, or go back to ANZ. And we've also done one to see to move back to the SFS. So hopefully they're listening to the fans, and which I think they are doing, and the way it looks like the fans have chosen the SFS. So we'll see you there, buddy.
Yeah, definitely. See you around round 25.
And you watch South fill up more seats than the Roosters on any given day. There'll probably be more South fans at a Roosters versus Tigers game, to be fair.
Maybe.
Well, the NFL draft was on a couple of weeks ago. There's a South fan there. You watch one event, you'll see a South fan. You will see a South fan. And I was in Perth a couple of weeks ago. There was guys in South hats all over the place.
Because you breed like rabbits. That's you're appropriately bloody named. Because you got nothing else to do. You bloody breed. When everyone else is too busy working, you got nothing. You know, the stereotypical South supporter. Let's not go into that though. I won't wind you on too much.
Look, I happened to listen to the other podcast about the referee, and he obviously brought up the South game quite a few times. But I noticed you steered away from the 2019 grand final about the refereeing decisions in that game, didn't you?
Well, let's be honest. There was a lot more shit decisions that went against the Roosters than towards it. And then I know the decision that you're talking about is that 6 again. Did James Tedesco touch it? Let's be real. Did he touch it? No. So the fact of the matter is, he did a shit calling the 6 again, and then he did 2 fuck ups. Like, he didn't touch it. James Tedesco didn't touch it, which, if you look at the replay, that's actually true. He didn't touch it, and he called 6 again.
Maybe.
He didn't. He missed it by a bloody 5 to 10 centimeters. He wasn't even close to it. It's clearly came off the Canberra Raiders player. And then he's called 6 again, and then Jared Sutton said he hasn't touched it, which he goes, actually, okay, it's still last, which he's not allowed to change his decision mid play. So he's done one shit decision followed by another shit decision, and then so there was that. And I'm like, I know you're gonna say that the other one was where it hit the trainer. Those are the 2 main ones that where people complain about. It was the 6 again. So really, James Tedesco didn't touch it. It shouldn't have been called 6 again. And the other one was that it hit the trainer. That should have been actually a Roosters penalty, because if you actually go back and watch that, Soliola hit Luke Keary's legs, which had been you're not allowed to attack the.
How have you turned it into a Roosters penalty? How?
No, because if you actually listen, wait. No, listen. Soliola chopped Keary's legs, which had been a penalty all bloody year. Had been penalised all season. Yet in the grand final, it wasn't penalised for some reason. And the only reason why the Roosters got the Roosters got the ball back was that I had a trainer. So that was actually a shit decision. And funnily enough, a guy that I know used to work with, his cousin, he didn't play in the grand final, but he was in the Canberra squad. I actually know the cousin and a brother of someone that was in the Canberra squad, and he was like, yeah, it should have been a Roosters penalty. No,
look, I'm not going to talk shit about that trainer, because that trainer's actually South's coached him this year. He's actually training the South.
Yeah.
But I think with that 6 again call, I think players more. They're more looking at the hand signal.
Yeah, that was a problem. That was a problem.
The issue, I think, the other issue is you guys scored off the next set. If you don't score off the next set, it's a bit more of an arm wrestle between after that decision. It wouldn't be as controversial. And 3, the only thing is, if he caught 6 again and there was play on, I don't think there'll be as big of an argument that Tedesco touched it or not.
Yeah, but if they end up, if you switch it and then Canberra score on that set, which they probably would have. Let's be real. They probably
been more investigated, but yeah, no.
Yeah, it would have been the root. It would have been the root.
Canberra in that game, Canberra should have scored in the corner through Joey Leilua, but he decided to not throw the ball to Rapana. That was the game right there. So you're not going to sit there and watch that game and say Roosters didn't deserve it, because they did. But at the same time, there's obviously going to be that controversy around that. But I'm sure it's going to get stripped anyway, because the Sutter Cup's going to get broken in about 2 years' time. Last 10 years, we can get over the cap. So I'm not too worried about it, to be honest.
Yeah, like when South had bloody the Burgess brothers and bloody Greg Inglis and Adam Reynolds and the rest of them bloody half their bloody team were bloody representative players. Yeah, we won't mention that. Hell, they were under the cap, but we won't mention that.
Right, when you got the likes of Dave Tyrrell in the front row, he's probably on $100,000. I think that's how they manufactured those seasons.
Yeah, then you had like Sam Burgess, who was like on about 800. You had bloody Greg Inglis on about 800. You would have had bloody Reynolds probably on about 600. You would have had bloody... And keep in mind, it wasn't a $10 million salary cap like it is now. And then you would have had bloody the other two Burgess brought the twins.
They were young. They were only in their second year of professional football, so they were on minimum. Luke Keary only debuted the year before.
You also had bloody...
That was Reynolds only his third year, so he's still on his rookie contract. So I think you're overlooking it. I think you got your Roosters glasses on.
And you also had Chris McQueen and all that, Queensland rep.
He just became a Queensland rep the year after. So I think,
Yeah, but you also had to look at the Roosters 2013 team. Like, look at them. You had... Virtually all of them were bloody rookies as well, half the bloody 2013 team. Like, bloody Roger Tuivasa-Sheck was only, 18, 19. Bloody Daniel Tupou was a discard from bloody Parramatta. You look at... Anthony Minichielli was on bloody peanuts at that point. Majority...
We're not worrying about that. We're more concerned about the...
18-19 grand final.
The Kubrick, like James Tedesco, Angus Crichton, Luke Keary, Daniel Tupou then now. I think people are more concerned about those numbers than Jake Friend and
Boyd Cordner.
I mean, the list goes on. And they're not representative players, so okay.
It's a sombrero, mate. It's the payment under the table. I'm winding you up, mate. Is the payment on the table? You don't see it. There's no. You have to have evidence of it, mate. That's why they pay them the brown paper bags, mate. There's no evidence. There's no evidence, mate.
Fair enough, Steve. Fair enough, mate. All for it. Anyway, to round up the podcast for today, and again, thanks for having me on. Roosters taking on Penrith, sorry.
No, we're going to get smashed.
Coming off a good win against Parramatta, any signs of confidence for this week, or is it you definitely think...
Nope. No confidence. No confidence at all.
Not even coming from that strong performance. Is it more of a defensive thing? Or you're still not in sync in your...
I'm more of a realist. I'd like to say the Roosters will win, but unfortunately, I just can't see it happening. I just, I think it's good. I reckon Penrith are going to win and win big, unfortunately. Unless something dramatically changed, I'm
surprised to hear it. I'm very surprised to hear it.
Yeah, unless something dramatically happens. Yeah, I know, but, I'd like, if I was just a rose-tinted glasses, the Roosters, I'd say, the Roosters win by, 12 plus, 13 plus, but, I just can't. Unfortunately, I can't see it happening. I think it's going to be 13 plus Penrith, unless the Roosters do something miraculous. But if they, or put it like this, if they play like they did in the first half against Para, it's going to be close. They play like this in the second half against Penrith, against Para against Penrith, they're going to get smashed. But yeah, if they play like they did in the first half against Para, it's going to be 1-12 either way. Play like they did again in the second half, it's going to be Penrith are going to run up a score like they did against the Storm. They're going to win, 30 points plus. So yeah.
Fair enough. The other main event for this round is probably the highest quality game. Is the Bulldogs versus Tigers.
Oh, good God, that's going to be a bad game. That's going to be a terrible game.
You got the coach sacking. You got the bounce back factor, which usually some clubs go by if they even get smashed the week before the coach gets sacked. Usually they pull out a performance, but I think Josh Hader's now been ruled out, so I still won't put it past the Bulldogs winning that game. But I think the other blockbuster game would be Cowboys and Storm. It's actually
Cowboys have been really under the radar this year. They're coming third. Like, no one's even spoken about them. They've been a bit of a dark horse this year.
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of talk that they made some not controversial signings, but underwhelming signings in bringing Chad Townsend up. But it's obviously paid dividends, and they're doing fantastic. And I think Todd Payton's obviously done a great job turning that club around, to be honest.
And I reckon you guys are going to have a comfortable... Oh, well, I won't say comfortable, but you guys should have a solid win against the Raiders on Sunday.
I don't. I mean, we beat the Warriors by 2 points. There's not a lot of confidence in South at the moment in terms of consistent performances. And
there's enough quality.
The heart and soul of our team's Cam Murray, and when he's not there, there is a big hole.
Oh, yeah, he's out, of course, yeah.
Canberra is in a bit of a hole, and I think Canberra have got the flu that's running through the whole camp, so I'll be interested to see what teams play. But I think South, to be honest, they've got a pretty easy run. They don't verse a current top 8 team till round 16, and Latrell's back in round 14, so any win they get now is just a bonus before Latrell. So Latrell's scheduled to be back round 14 against Tigers, and they've got a bye the week before that. So then there's only got one more week with Latrell, and that's against the Tigers next week. So if they can get some momentum and win these next 2 games to make it 3 in a row, then I think they'll be sitting. Hopefully, I can only see a 6-point finish at most. Which I'm just happy to play finals, considering Adam Reynolds is gone and he's playing outstanding. Plus the likes of Gagai left, who I think was another gaping issue because the Souths have not solidified a back line yet. They've been shuffling through wingers and centres and Paul.
To be honest, I don't think Gagai was ever consistent for you guys. I thought he was.
If you look at last year, I think he definitely had his best season in a Rabbitohs jersey last year, as did Reynolds, to be honest. But I think there's a lot of plays. You kind of see it from the way Cody Walker plays. I think a lot of it was his decision making. He went to use Gagai and went to use him as a decoy. I think he hasn't found that connection. So that's where I think a lot of Gagai's, didn't show up on his stat sheet. But when he made those decisions in running a short line or getting the ball and passing out to the winger, I think that's made a big difference, and Walker hasn't found that consistency with another centre yet. I think that's why they moved Campbell Graham over to the left side last week, and you saw South scored a number of tries down that side. So,
yeah,
that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting the rest of the season, but wrapping this up. Thanks for coming on, and I haven't spoken to you in a while, so congratulations on your engagement. I know you're planning to get married soon, so congrats on that. So Yeah, big moment for you. Big moment for you. So congrats on that, and hope it all goes well with that with the wedding, and thanks for coming on.
All right, Stevie. Great to be on the show, mate.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.